Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park here, the SABC in Johannesburg. After what a dramatic week, isn't it? With President Ramaphosa, with that cabinet reshuffle last week. And of course, one of the people appointed, flowing from that cabinet reshuffle, is the Minister of Communications, Mvula Mokonyane, who's my guest tonight. But of course, also in Parliament, some dramatic debates there about land, changing the political climate, with the EFF practically taking the gap in leading that parliament into adopting what everybody thought, no, this could never be adopted, especially led by a 6% party. But can you believe it? The temerity of the Freedom Front Plus. You know, mumbling of stories about us emerging from Central Africa, the dromedaries are arriving here with a piece of land, the Khoisans are not black. It's simply unbelievable what some have not learned over the 24 years about what it means to build a nation. But let's take a look at some of the highlights from that debate in Parliament earlier this week.
The time for reconciliation is over. Now is the time for justice. If the grandchildren of Jan van Riebeeck have not understood that we need our land, that over and above it is about our dignity, then they have failed to receive the gift of humanity.
President, if you are going to take the land, are you going to give it to Basotho, or are you going to give to which section of the population?
Point of order,
Who is our people? I must ask, who is our people? Who is not our people?
The narrative that the land was stolen must stop because it's false. I agree. If we want to debate on a responsible manner about land, we will have to stop that.
What a nerve, isn't it? It's simply nonsense, man. To think that, you know, people who are supposed to be pulling together with Mandela's reconciliation dream to build a new nation would 24 years later still not get it. That our people are landless, we've got so much poverty and unemployment, and we've got to intervene to resolve it. But somebody who's going to be talking through this new dawn, this new vision for the country, somebody who's been appointed to be the voice and the face of South Africa is Mvula Mokonyane, the Minister of Communications, who is my guest tonight. Let's go and talk frankly to her. Welcome to Frankly Speaking, Minister, and thank you so much for agreeing to be our guest.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've not even finished a week in the new position, and you're expected to hit the ground running. One of the big things that have been a buzz over the last couple of weeks is the whole notion of a new dawn. A lot of people wondering, what is new? Really, because we've been having this sonas, year in and year out over the last 24 years, and people are wondering, what is new? What is so new about this dawn, Minister?
It's about taking what was resolved in Nasrec about unity, self-correction, renewal beyond the African National Congress, calling for unity among South Africans to further develop the country and emancipate the majority of our people, making sure that together we are able to make a difference. And thirdly, being able to create platforms for alternative views and alternative ideas. And lastly, ensuring that whatever that has hampered progress is attended to, perceived and real corruption, inefficiencies within the system, and most importantly, the responsibility of the South African citizenry itself.
It's interesting you've mentioned the issue of inefficiency and corruption. Do you think we're going to see a new way in which corruption is going to be dealt with. We've seen the hawks, raiding offices, arresting people, and so on. And of course, last week, I think it was the EFF's chief whip saying, it seems like the hawks are now waking up because they see a new political master. Can you assure us that there'll be a new dawn in the way in which corruption is going to be tackled by this government?
In fact, we need to remind South Africans that it is only the ANC that had come with these institutions and the capacity that deals with corruption, and also that there has been action previously, and we need to make sure, therefore, that it gets intensified by ensuring that those that have a responsibility operate without any obstacle, but of importance. Ensure also that where it is actually being identified, it is dealt with without any intention to rubbish and taint the individuals who are said to be implicated.
And I mean, obviously the issue of corruption giving government a bad name. Do you think, in your view, as a Minister of Communications, that the image of government right now is intact? Do you think it's in tatters? What's your assessment? I'm sure that that's some of the first things on your intro was to assess the state of, of things, and as far as our image and reputation is concerned as a country.
Three things are quite critical. Is to make sure that we have many voices but one message, and we need to make sure that there's a commandist approach in terms of dissemination of information, that we capacitate our frontline service delivery sites. And that requires a better communication
but what's
system.
Your assessment of the current things now?
My view is we have not actually made use of our capacity and ability. In every community, there's a platform of government. There are community radio stations. We've got the GCIS. We've got ordinary South Africans. We've got community development workers. We've got the South African Broadcasting Corporation. We've got partnerships. We've got telecommunication that we can also
after
utilize.
The break, I want to break down how you are going to really line up all of these institutions that report to you about lifting that reputation of government. You are on Frankly Speaking. You can follow our show on #FranklySpeaking on Twitter. After the break, we continue to talk to the Minister of Communications, Nomvula Mokonyane. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. My name is Unkgopotse JJ Tawa, and my guest tonight is the Minister of Communications, Nomvula Mokonyane. You can, of course, follow our show on #Frankly Speaking. Mokonyane, a lot of communities sometimes feel a disconnect with government, right? Despite all of the things you've mentioned about, capacity all over the country. So what are you going to do to ensure that, for example, community media, government spends more on community media, focuses on how communities can get information that can empower them to take advantage of all of the things that you are rolling out on economic development?
Only through partnerships with civil society and the sector, the communication sector, can government be in a position to deal with these issues. Secondly, ensuring that ministers know their story and are able to be always available and be in a position to disseminate information. We need to redirect our resources away from putting up a marquee towards making sure that we fund these community radio stations. We turn Vukuzenzele into a vibrant tool that must reach out to our people. We must make sure also that at local government, because we're a unitary state, at the local government level, we also increase that capacity. The location of GCIS across provinces, it must actually help to reach out. We need partnership with the media, and again, if we all say there is a new dawn, we need the media that must help us to
have a new dawn.
They must also have a new dawn and reposition themselves towards telling the story, yes, being critical, but being able also to provide the platform to set the record straight.
The issue of the media. What is your philosophy, right, about media relations? How are you going to relate with the media? Because there's always this thing, this tension that seems to have grown into an unhealthy one. Of course, there must be a healthy tension to keep each other in check, but there seems to have been a very corrosive relationship with the media. What's going to be your philosophy about media relations, Minister?
We need to make sure that we all agree on the right of the media to communicate and disseminate information, but they also have to make sure that they play their part in disseminating information, and of importance, they contribute towards healing this nation beyond just this new dawn, but giving also the history, the current discussions around the issues of land expropriation.
Yes.
We need the media that must remind everybody that we need to be sensitive and not to actually undermine the decision and the determination that we have arrived at.
And in terms of just the relationship with the media, there's been a lot of scare things that they happened over the last 10 years. I mean, you've got this thing called the Media Tribunal that's been hanging since 2007. You had ministers specifically saying they're going to cut advertising to media who are negative. People want to know whether is it going to get worse, or are you going to be reaching out to try and build bridges between the Fourth Estate and the government? We
need each other. We need each other for the sanity of this country. And I'm looking forward to interacting with various structures already. I've had almost 6 meetings with different media houses and groups and individuals just in this week, including today whilst we're in the ANC elections workshop. And my intention is we need everybody to play his or her part. And of importance, we need to set the rules on how we are going to work together and respect one another so that we don't actually contaminate an already contaminated environment.
And one of the huge players in this space is the SABC that's going to be reporting under you. Your predecessor, Memo Tambi, all but destroyed this place. Journalists scared of doing their work, their board being interfered with, and so on. In fact, we have court cases, and to spare, there was one court case that was even having to say that, Minister, please allow the board to appoint executives to do their work. Your immediate predecessor appealed that decision, which gave a sense that that parliamentary report was not taken serious. How are you going to relate to the SABC? Tell us now.
We need to reposition the SABC back to its glory. It must be a body that is respected not only in South Africa but also in Africa and the world, given its capacity and its abilities. We need to also make sure that we modify the ability and the means within the South African Broadcasting Corporation. We need to appreciate also the skills that are here, immense talent that is here. Of importance, yes, there must be oversight, there must be accountability, and there must be minimal interference, but key is all of us agreeing on what is to be done. And that is what we need to work on.
Since you have been in government, do you get the sense, right, that there is nervousness about the SABC to a point where it became necessary for a minister, your colleague, to actually interview, sit outside here at the door and say, please appoint Daudi, please appoint so-and-so? Was it because there was nervousness, or as a team of cabinet, nervousness that the SABC was not doing its job? Because I'm struggling to understand. If you appoint a board, especially with a process like that of Parliament, surely you must trust them to do their work.
I wouldn't want to dwell much on my predecessor.
And in fact,
my predecessor is Kensani.
The immediate one was fine.
And important, let me finish. Of importance, what we need to do, this notion of self-correction and renewal must apply across
the board.
It must. And everyone, including those that are functioning within our own institutions, such as the SABC, must also appreciate the mandate that is bestowed upon them and stay away from getting involved too much into the party politics, particularly of the African National Congress.
But are you going to continue with the appeal by your immediate predecessor or that was separating the work of you as shareholder minister and the board, especially in as far as appointing executives here, secondly, determining editorial policy? Very, very important.
I am already consulting with a legal team outside of what the team that has been on board. And I hope that by Thursday they will give me better counsel on how to move. And of importance, these are role players in this particular space. I have also spoken to 2 other very key people who are involved in the policy within the African National Congress. And this afternoon I met with the portfolio committee part of the African National Congress. We looked at what needs to be done, as well as the new chair of the ANC committee. I'm sure by Thursday we will be able to share the information, because we intend that by Saturday we should be sharing with the South Africans on how we reposition and how we reconnect and make sure that the communication sector contributes towards the economy, contributes towards skills development, contributes towards the transformation of our nation.
Almost 4 of your predecessors have missed the deadline of what is called digital migration, a very big thing. The whole world is moving in one direction. We're still stuck in the 30s, with analog and so on. what are you going to do to make sure that this deadline, this all-important deadline of digital migration, is met?
In my conversation with the new Minister of Finance, as well as talking to my two other predecessors, we do believe that let's stick to the policy that has been pronounced by the ANC. Let's make sure that we create a platform that can reach out to our people and inform citizenry, particularly using means that will reach out. And lastly, we will be talking to the Minister of Finance, looking at how we use even a portion of the spectrum, having resolved in the ANC and in the policy structures on how we can mobilize resources, because we will need no less than 6 billion to deal with it.
Absolutely. Leremi Kujo on Twitter saying, when is she planning to open the spectrum so that more players can enter the space, as currently Mnet is monopolizing the market?
To say we are considering
but transformation of that sector
is quite crucial. And when you open up, we need to make sure that role players are not necessarily the old guard. We need to make sure that we afford the opportunity of young, smart minds. We embrace innovation, and we bring those that have not been in the space, without antagonizing those that can transfer the skill and the knowledge. And hence, it has to be a hybrid as compared to just saying we are opening up and therefore everyone who has been there, you have to go out. We need each other. We need to take advantage of this intervention. And once we have consulted and concluded with the Minister of Finance, and having spoken to the team that we're pulling together that is advising me, I'm sure by this coming Thursday afternoon, we'll have a better report that will be taking also to our policy unit.
Our country has been positioned very badly internationally. In fact, we've had 2 downgrades by various rating agencies. And after the break, I want to talk about how you intend to repositioning us internationally. You are with, frankly speaking, and we are with the Minister of Communications. After the break, we discuss some more about how she intends to position us around the globe. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. My guest tonight, the minister responsible for what used to be called propaganda. She's going to tell you the truth as you have never heard it before. Minister, South Africa abroad, if we are honest, people in the last 5 years have been worried about things that are happening here, political developments here, ministers of finance being fired, you name it. 2 downgrades down the line. What are you going to do, right, to reposition South Africa abroad?
One capacity that South Africa has is brand South Africa. We also have our own embassies across the globe. We need to appreciate also the capacity that exists there in brand SA. We need to partner very well with the South African tourism fraternity and ensure, therefore, that we partner with our own business tourists. We communicate periodically on the developments, but we must start first with giving certainty to our own local investors. Secondly, we need to reassure the world that in as much as we want to encourage foreign investments, there must also be a commitment to embrace those that are here in our country. We've seen Brand SA doing quite well on the issues around perceived acts of terrorism in our country. We've seen Brand SA doing very well around the drought. They carried it very well. We are now working together with them on the issues around the expropriation of land. We've spoken just today with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. And what is of importance is how we market our country and how we as South Africans are also becoming ambassadors and those who must actually market the country. The last thing, we've got the presence of many foreign missions here in South Africa, and we need to have those relationships. Ministers must find space outside just of international relations where there's interaction, particularly on this critical issue that is a breakthrough around really taking South Africa to another level, the issue of land expropriation.
Talking about this land expropriation, it seemed a bit abrupt. You elected leadership in December, and then there was a lapse of 2 months before the ANC could actually table something that will turn this practically. And a lot of people are thinking, this looks like a deja vu. We went to Polokwane, adopted free education as a policy, and it took 10 years before it could be implemented. How are you communicating a message that says this thing is serious and it's going to be implemented? Because there's a lot of nervous farmers out there who are saying, oh, these people are now going to come and take our land and so on. What is the message of government around that particular issue? The
key message is that we will be doing this within an environment that takes everybody on board. And hence there will be those consultations as what the president has actually pronounced. Secondly, the key role players in the sector, the financial institutions, the agricultural sector, both black and white, emerging and established, must also participate there. Those that have been on subsistence farming must actually
but have you started engaging with the farmers?
That. And already, fortunately, I personally have already established the relationship with Agri-SA, the president of Agri-SA, and there is a process for them to meet as the sector together with the president. Part of our post-SONA is going to be these kind of engagements. Watch the space.
Wonderful. We're going to be watching that because there seems to be some panic. And you heard what the FF Plus is saying, threatening civil war. You know, surely if with the same theme of unity from the party, you've got to be worried about unity across the nation.
And that's part of that new dawn to say unity, self-correction and renewal must also apply within society. And it is unfortunate for the EFF, for the Freedom Front Plus, to then say there can't be a movement forward, and if that happens, there must be civil war and them pleading to the Americans to accommodate them. South Africa belongs to all those who live in it.
Nsika on Twitter saying, please ask Minister, since she was a minister, which portfolio does she think she failed at and which one did she do well? And then, of course, also Bev Aspelling says, ask her about the Department of Water and Sanitation Department that is said to be bankrupt. Just summarize there for me. What do you think were your highlights in your own journey to this point? I'm told you were in Parliament in your 20s.
Yes. The first one was on agriculture and environment. We now have Maruping and many other things. The black farmers that are in Zirbekom and some of them are in Dorenkop were the women that we worked with Comrade Togo Titiza and Derek Anekom. Then we moved to safety. We've got Ikaele Temba, not far from here, when we had to deal with domestic violence and support to victims of violence. We initiated the metropolis divisions, and that is exactly what we did. We had the state-of-the-art police stations. One of them is in Kagiso, where you don't just have a police station, you've got a community safety center, a police station, a court, and access to prison. Then we moved to housing. We've got Cosmos City, where people thought the rich and the poor can't live together, and this is one of our own show off as a nation. We became the premier. By the time I left Gauteng, the province had an amount of 4 billion in their reserves, and we put a turnaround strategy for the Department of Health, and we had a lot of departments that moved into clean audit. I moved into water. It was a new department altogether that had to be established, and we made sure within this period we reach out to the villages. Jozini Dam, which didn't provide water to people in Umkanyagute, is now providing water when it has been there for 40 years.
Any failures at all?
The failure, let me tell you, the failure that has been there on my side, which I want to appreciate, is my indecisiveness on dealing with the defaulters who have made the department to stand with a debt of 11 billion.
If you were to summarize your tenure as water affairs in one sentence, what would you say to me?
We've made a difference to the ordinary South African.
Okay. Now, Minister, in terms of going forward, if people were to, and we'll invite you again, probably after a few months.
Weeks, man.
What could people judge you against? If we invite you here again, let's say after your 100 days, what are the things that we should ask you in terms of just one or two that will be your big criteria for us to judge your success or failure?
The issue around digital migration, access to information and dissemination to our communities, repositioning SABC.
So those are the two big things that we can judge you against. Your last word to South Africa as we round off the conversation?
In the coming weekend, we'll be going for voter registration. Let us remind South Africans that deepening democracy and public participation is quite important. The first-time voter must go out and register so that they can vote for the party of their choice in 2019. And secondly, those that have relocated from one area to the other since the last general elections, go and register and make sure that you've got an appropriate address. Wow. And lastly, those who have their IDs still left at Home Affairs, please go and collect them.
Minister, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we really hope you'll be a regular here. So that we can try to build this country going forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, JJ.
Thank you. That was Frankly Speaking, coming to you live from Auckland Park here in Johannesburg. And we can continue to follow conversations at Frankly Speaking at SABC News Online and at JJ Taban. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.